I never believed in urban legends, not because I thought I was smarter than everyone else, or because I needed proof for every strange thing people claimed to see. I always believed most scary stories were warnings, dressed up as monsters. Don't walk alone at night. Don't talk to strangers. Don't follow someone into the dark. Every country has stories like that. Every town has some road, some bridge, or some abandoned building where people swear something waits after sunset. But when I moved to Japan, I learned that some stories don't feel like warnings. Some feel like memories. The one I heard most often was about a woman who wore a white surgical mask. At first, I thought that part made the story less scary. In Japan, masks were normal. People wore them on trains, in grocery stores, walking to work, and standing at crosswalks. It wasn't strange to see someone with half their face covered. That was what made the story worse, because she could be anyone. The legend was simple. A woman appears at night, usually on a quiet street, an empty road, or near a school after dark. Her face is hidden behind a mask. She stops someone walking alone and asks one question: "Am I beautiful?" If you say no, she kills you. If you say yes, she removes the mask, revealing a mouth cut open from ear to ear, and asks again, "How about now?" There is no right answer. At least, that's what I thought, until the night she asked me. I was living in a small town outside Kyoto, teaching English at a local language school. During the day, the town was peaceful, with quiet streets, old temples, mountains in the distance, and narrow roads lined with gardens. But after 9 p.m., it felt like the entire place shut itself down. Shop signs clicked off one by one, the last train disappeared into the distance, bicycles vanished from the sidewalks, and even the stray cats seemed to disappear into the alleys, as if they knew something I didn't. My apartment was about 20 minutes from the school on foot. During the day, the walk was beautiful, but at night those same streets felt unnaturally still. Everything looked too clean, too perfect, like the town had been carefully arranged for someone who wasn't there yet. My first warning came from one of my students, a quiet university girl named Mika. One evening after class, she asked if I walked home. When I said yes, she glanced nervously toward the rain-soaked street outside and quietly told me not to use the old road near the canal. I assumed she meant it flooded, but she simply said, "There are stories." That was the first time I heard the name Kuchisake-onna, the Slit-Mouthed Woman. Mika explained that children used to run home in groups because of her. Parents warned them never to answer strange women at night. Some people claimed the sightings began decades ago, when school children reported seeing a masked woman near the roads. I laughed awkwardly and asked, "So what am I supposed to say if she asks me?" Mika looked at me with complete seriousness and replied, "Do not answer directly." When I asked what that meant, she explained that I should say she was average, ask her the same question, or throw hard candy and run. I waited for her to smile, but she never did. She simply bowed, said goodnight, and left. I convinced myself it was just local folklore meant to entertain or scare foreigners. For the next few weeks, nothing happened. Eventually, I started using the canal road again, because it saved nearly 10 minutes. It became part of my routine. School, convenience store, canal road, apartment. I almost forgot Mika's warning until missing person posters began appearing around town. First, a 17-year-old boy who disappeared after leaving cram school. Then another poster. Then another. By the end of the week, his face was everywhere. I asked another teacher, Sato, about it. He simply said the police were searching, but warned me not to walk the canal road late at night. When I mentioned Kuchisake-onna, his expression changed immediately. "That story is not for joking," he said quietly, before refusing to say another word. 3 nights later, I stayed late grading essays and left school around 10:40 p.m. I considered taking the main road, but chose the canal road instead because I was tired. At first, everything felt normal. My footsteps echoed softly. A vending machine buzzed nearby. Somewhere far away, a train horn faded into the distance. Then I heard footsteps behind me. Slow, even. They matched my pace exactly. Whenever I slowed down, they slowed. Whenever I sped up, they did the same. I reached for my phone and discovered I had no signal. even though I always had service there. Then the footsteps stopped. So did I. Silence filled the street until a woman's voice softly said, "Sumimasen." Excuse me. I turned slowly and saw a tall woman standing about 10 feet away. She wore a beige trench coat, had long black hair, and covered her face with a white surgical mask. For one brief moment, I felt relieved because she looked completely ordinary. Then I realized there was nowhere she could have come from. She tilted her head and asked quietly in Japanese, "Watashi, Kirei, am I beautiful?" Every story I had laughed about came rushing back. I remembered Mika's warning, "Do not answer directly." My mind raced. Average. Ask her the same question. Candy. Run. But I had no candy, and my legs wouldn't move. Finally, I whispered, "You look ordinary." She stared at me silently before repeating the word in a strange, distorted voice. Ordinary. I stepped backward. She stepped forward. I turned and walked quickly away. Behind me, her footsteps resumed. Click, click, click. Calm, steady. Then her voice floated toward me. "Do you want to see?" I broke into a run. She ran too, but her footsteps never changed rhythm. Click, click, click. I reached what should have been the main street, expecting lights, traffic, and people, but instead found another deserted road that looked exactly like the one I had left. When I turned around, she had vanished. Then I heard breathing beside me. She stood directly under a nearby streetlight. Slowly, she reached up and pulled down her mask. I wish I had looked away, but I couldn't. Her mouth had been sliced open from ear to ear, forming a grotesque red smile. The wounds looked ancient and fresh at the same time. Too many teeth were visible. Then her smile widened. The cuts stretched farther apart. "How about now?" she whispered through the ruined mouth. My mind froze. I knew the legend. Say yes, and she would make me look like her. Say no, and she would kill me. She raised one hand, revealing a pair of long silver scissors with heavy black handles. The blades opened with a soft metallic sound. I ran without thinking, sprinting through unfamiliar streets, past dark houses, abandoned playgrounds, and silent vending machines. She followed with those same steady footsteps, never faster, never slower. I squeezed through a narrow alley, stumbled over a bicycle, scraped my hands on the pavement, and finally saw the bright lights of a convenience store. I threw myself through the automatic doors. The elderly clerk looked up in surprise. Barely able to speak, I gasped, "Woman." Mask, scissors. His face immediately changed. Without asking any questions, he locked the doors, switched off the front sign, and pulled me behind the counter. "Quiet," he whispered in English. That frightened me more than anything, because he already understood. We hid silently for several minutes until 3 gentle taps echoed against the glass. Tap, tap. A woman's voice drifted through the door. "Am I beautiful?" The clerk pressed a finger to his lips. She asked again. The tapping continued. Soft, patient. Eventually, the tapping stopped. After waiting another minute, the clerk cautiously looked outside before handing me a pack of hard candy. "Keep this," he said. When I asked if the story was real, he simply replied, "Some stories are stories because people survive." I took a taxi home and spent the entire night awake. The following morning, I decided to quit my job and leave town. But Mika never came to class. Days passed, and eventually her face appeared on a missing person poster beside the station, just like the teenage boys. When I confronted Sato, he only sighed and said, "She warned you." He explained that the town had always been haunted by stories of roads that changed, questions whispered in the dark, and children who returned home with cuts near their mouths, never speaking again. "People who talk about her too much sometimes see her," he said. That night I packed everything and booked the earliest train out. Around midnight, my phone rang from an unknown number. I ignored it once, but when it rang again, I answered, hoping it might somehow be Mika. At first there was only static, then slow breathing. Finally, a woman whispered, "You did not answer." I dropped the phone. The call remained connected. "How about now?" she whispered again. One by one, every light in my apartment went out until only the glow from my cracked phone remained. Then came footsteps outside my apartment door. Click, click, click. A shadow appeared beneath the door. Then 3 gentle knocks. Tap, tap, tap. I backed into the kitchen as the doorknob slowly turned by itself. The door opened a few inches, and a pale hand with long black nails reached inside. Desperately, I threw the hard candy into the hallway. Tiny wrappers scattered across the floor. After a long pause, the hand withdrew. Through the gap, I watched her crouch down and calmly pick up each piece of candy. I didn't wait. I climbed over my second-floor balcony, dropped onto the grass below, badly twisted my ankle, and ran toward the train station while hearing her amused voice behind me ask, "Where are you going?" I reached the station just before dawn. The first train wouldn't arrive for another 20 minutes. Those 20 minutes felt endless as I watched every shadow and reflection. When the train finally arrived, I boarded immediately. As it pulled away, I looked through the window and saw her standing alone on the platform. Beige trench coat, white surgical mask, long black hair. She simply stood there, then slowly raised one hand and waved as the train disappeared into the distance. I left Japan 2 days later, abandoned most of my belongings, changed my phone number, and eventually moved twice after returning home. For months, nothing happened. No footsteps, no phone calls, no masked women. Eventually, I convinced myself I had escaped. But last week, I started working late again. Different country, different city, different life. My office building has a secure parking garage filled with lights and security cameras. Last night, while walking to my car, I heard footsteps behind me. Slow, even, click, click, click. I stopped. The footsteps stopped too. At the far end of the garage stood a woman wearing a beige trench coat and a white surgical mask. In one hand, she held long silver scissors. In the other, a single piece of hard candy. She tilted her head and asked in a voice that echoed through the empty garage, "Am I beautiful?" I didn't answer. I'm still not sure there is an answer. But now I understand why the story survived for so long. It was never meant to scare children into coming home before dark. It was meant to teach them something much worse. Some questions follow you, and sooner or later, they ask again.